From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. With the Venezuelan election just over a week away, candidates are pulling out all the stops to ensure a high voter turnout. Our correspondent Esther Yáñez breaks down the latest.
The electoral campaign in Venezuela is continuing, with only 10 days left until voters go to the polls. On May 20th, more than 20 million Venezuelans will elect their next president and members of Venezuela's legislative councils. Meanwhile, the candidates are intensifying their campaigns in order to gain the votes of the undecided. The candidates' agenda for today was the following. President Maduro visited two states, Nueva Esparta and Guárico. The opposition candidate, Henry Falcon, visited the state of Anzoátegui and also the state of Sucre. And the evangelical candidate, Javier Bertucci, stayed in Caracas, giving a press conference. There's been a lot of speculation about the resignation of Javier Bertucci to join Falcon. This was to promote a joint opposition candidacy against Nicolas Maduro, and has been discussed a lot lately. The two candidates had said the union would be very positive. Those opposition candidates met privately last night, but ultimately Javier Bertucci didn't resign his candidacy. According to him, he's rising in the polls. We will keep you updated with the presidential elections in Venezuela.
That was Esther Yáñez from Caracas. President Maduro has announced that Isla Margarita, one of the country's most important tourist locations, is to be made into a special economic area for the use of the Petro cryptocurrency. Maduro was speaking at a campaign rally in Nueva Esparta, where he asked supporters to unite as times of prosperity, change, and hope lie ahead. President Maduro is pushing the Petro as a major tool to combat external economic sanctions. Maduro previously announced the Petro will be used to open a youth bank with 20 million units, which he says are collectively worth $1.2 billion.
I just signed a decree to declare the whole island of Margarita a special economic zone for the use of the Petro, to be used for transactions. Margarita, the first Petro zone in the country.
International observers are due to be arriving in Venezuela next week to accompany and monitor the electoral process. Earlier, we spoke with Raúl Burbano of Common Frontiers on how Venezuela's voting system compares to that of other countries.
Well, I've had the opportunity to participate in elections observations in Venezuela, Bolivia, and most recently in Honduras in 2013. And I think I could say unequivocally that the electoral system in Venezuela is one of the strongest in terms of the environmental process, pre and post the elections. So it's one that's laden with transparency, participation of all the different parties. In other countries, for example, in Honduras, it was more an environment of intimidation and fear. Also, when I look at the electoral technology and system, the one in Venezuela is extremely advanced and secure. For example, there's biometric authentication of the voter, which also activates the machine. The system is auditable through all the stages, which is something that I did not see in any of the other countries that I've participated in.
Staying in Venezuela, the second day of the international meeting to discuss reparations for slavery has come to a close. The country has been hosting the meetings after President Maduro's proposal a few months ago for an international plan to repair and protect the rights of the African community that were damaged through slavery and colonization. Our correspondent Ian Bruce spoke to the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, who said the case could be taken all the way to the Criminal Court of Justice.
Well, the importance of it is the first time we are seeing a structured, organized joinder between Latin America, the Caribbean and Africa on the issue of reparations. for native genocide and African slavery. Before, it has been focused largely in the Caribbean community and among one or two African states, particularly in West Africa. Now, Venezuela is involved, Latin America is involved, playing an important role to push this forward, because the reparation movement is about repairing the legacy of underdevelopment as a consequence of native genocide and African slavery. And once it is put in those terms, persons can see with clarity what it is about, that the real conditions today have a direct connection with what happened centuries ago, because it's not easy to erase the effect of native genocide and African slavery in such a short period of time. And we need help to repair this legacy of underdevelopment. And the countries which profited, the European countries, they should be the ones to be providing reparations, repairing, in collaboration with us in a partnership.
So how will this initiative connect with the existing CARICOM?
Well, this one will help to in a sense, give more life and broaden the discussion, because the discussion is not just legal, it is political and it's diplomatic.
So what are the next steps?
Well, we in CARICOM, we have a commission, and we are proceeding with our work in diplomatic terms, in educational terms, and hopefully we will get shortly today ICJ, the International Court of Justice. If we can't, if as a consequence of our mature conversation with them, we don't come to an understanding or a resolution.
So you're planning to take it to the ICJ?
Yes. Yes. We intended to take it to the ICJ within the framework of international law.
When could that happen? Who will take it?
Well, the individual states in CARICOM will have to take it. But there's some way before we do that, because we want to pursue more dialogue, pursue more diplomatic work. But we're preparing the case all the time.
With elections set to take place in 2 weeks in Barbados, political parties have presented their list of candidates. On Wednesday, the ruling Democratic Labour Party presented a progress report of its past 5 years in power, highlighting progress in education, sports, youth and economic development. The ruling DLP and the opposition Barbados Labour Party have both presented 30 candidates. This year's election has attracted a record number of parties and presidential hopefuls, with a total of 132 candidates for 30 seats in the House of Assembly. Around 40% of the candidates are women. Prime Minister Rendell Stewart defended his government's policies, especially when it came to providing affordable housing. He listed a series of housing developments built under his government, saying the opposition BLP didn't provide them when they were in the leadership.
The demand for houses always outstrips the supply of houses. So this is a race that government continues to run. Every government in the Caribbean, and the government of the United States of America, the government of the United Kingdom, the government of Canada, all governments in the Western world have been running that race. And the government of Barbados can feel proud that we have done as well as we have done in the last 10 years, in the most difficult circumstances any government of Barbados since independence has had to face.
Pension increases in this country have gone up 24% in the 10 years that Chris has been your MP. But prices have gone up near 50%. And then on top of that, you, the pensioners, have had to fork out money for co-payment on medication. And we can go on with other things that you continue to have to endure and face. What mirror image do you have of yourself when you can afford to pay the bills of a man and contractors who go way over budget, but you can't pay a little something more for the pensioners that help make the way for you in this country?
And that was BLP's Mia Motley defending her plan to increase the non-contribution pensions by $112 per week, payable every 2 weeks. The ruling DLP has said that this plan is unsustainable. Now we go to another story. Peace talks between the National Liberation Army, or the ELN, and the Colombian government are currently taking place in Havana, Cuba. The chief negotiator of the ELN, Pablo Beltrán, has showed his commitment to the peace negotiations and made a call for the peace accord with the FARC to be protected. Beltrán warned that a social transformation is needed in Colombia. Otherwise, he said, our guerrilla generation may disappear and new ones could come. The fifth cycle of talks is seeking a peace accord between the ELN and the government, such as the one signed by the FARC in 2016.
It is very important that we are able to agree on a ceasefire, much better than the previous one, even if it's not a final ceasefire, but at least a better one. And also we should encourage participation of Colombian society in this process, because this agenda has two main goals. The first is to design a transformation process for Colombia, and secondly, take a new step to move towards the end of the conflict.
We'll take a short break now, but join us after this video from our multimedia colleagues. Welcome back. Brazil police are saying a Rio de Janeiro council member has been linked to the murder of fellow councillor and activist Mariel Franco. According to preliminary investigations, the council member is linked to criminal groups operating in the city. A witness said the councilman met with criminal leader Orlando Oliveira to plan the attack on Franco. Orlando Oliveira is under arrest, and Franco was murdered along with her driver. Brazil's Supreme Court has voted against allowing former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to be freed from the police headquarters in Curitiba. Lula has been detained there since April after being sentenced to 12 years in prison for alleged money laundering. However, Lula is still running for office in October's presidential election and is leading in the polls while he maintains his innocence. In Nicaragua, a concert for peace took place, drawing a huge crowd to celebrate in support of President Daniel Ortega.
Music, along with Nicaraguan and Sandinista flags, covered the space between Bolivar and Chavez streets. The people here came to celebrate peace and dialogue.
We're singing for love, peace, and Nicaragua today. We sing for the effort made by Nicaragua for inner and regional peace. This whole group of national artists are singing for our people.
People young and old and entire families called for peace and calm, saying no to efforts to destabilize the country.
Some people try to bring darkness back, to keep crime alive. We want the youth to not be influenced or fooled by the people who try to manipulate them, because we have worked hard and shed too much blood for our country until now.
People say that Nicaragua has progressed thanks to a period of peace, and that peace must be preserved. President Ortega maintains large-scale support.
They want to kill peace because it's the only tool we have to achieve prosperity. Without it, they can start coups and remove President Ortega from power. But they still don't know that Nicaraguans want peace, employment, prosperity, and they can only do it with Daniel Ortega.
Meanwhile, people await the dialogue called by President Ortega, which will bring together several sectors of Nicaraguan society, including students, the private sector, and other civil society organizations.
In Guatemala, a campesino leader was killed and his organization, the Committee on Farming Development, CODECA, blames the murder on the government. 47-year-old Luis Arturo Marroquin was killed in San Luis Jilotepeque, 80 kilometers south of the capital city on Wednesday. Our correspondent Mario Rosales has more.
Guatemalan social organizations are shocked after the murder of human rights activists and a member of the leadership of the CODECA organization, Luis Marroquin. The 47-year-old was killed in the eastern department of Hapala, according to witnesses. A car followed him until he stopped to buy something, then men got out of the car and shot him in the back. CODECA blames President Jimmy Morales and the government for this, after the harsh criticism they've leveled against CODECA for the marches they've organized. They've also accused them of being involved in illegal activities. CODECA is asking the public ministry to start investigations into the killing.
That was Mario Rosales from Guatemala. Now we move to Ecuador, where 4 members from the community of Rio Blanco were detained on Wednesday night after they clashed with police. The indigenous community was protesting against a mining project inside their territory, south of the country. The Ministry of Mining said the community tried to enter the project and damaged facilities. On their part, the Confederation of Indigenous Communities has denounced the mining project and the damage it is causing to the community and the environment. They asked the government to stop persecuting social leaders and environmental defenders. In Peru, the remains of 23 people who disappeared between 1980 and 2000 have been handed back to their relatives. The International Committee of the Red Cross and the Peruvian Prosecutor's Office handed back the bodies, which were found in a mass grave at a ceremony in the Andean city of Huanta. The number of disappeared during the internal conflict is estimated to be around 20,000.
My mother and father left me when I was 11 years old. The Shining Path murdered them one night. They came into my home and took my father, my mother, and my brother out of the house.
After searching for so long, after so much suffering, now to see the remains of my husband with my own eyes, I feel more at peace.
Chilean students have returned to the streets, and yet again they were violently repressed by the police.
They wanted to march on Santiago's Central Avenue, La Alameda, but they've been told they cannot, so they changed the route.
We hope that this mobilization will be peaceful, despite all the attempts that the police and government have made to stop it. We hope that the police will not retaliate against us, and we say to Sebastián Piñera, it is obvious that you did not learn anything from the protest of 2011. It is much easier to mobilize with permission than without it.
The students have called for civil disobedience and have gathered in the traditional Plaza of Heroes with the support of parents and supporters.
It seems like the police don't recognize free will, and now they are lashing out increasingly at secondary school students because they are going to march by themselves, which is to say that not one sector of the population has the right to march on La Alameda. Is it because they are underage students?
It's a protest that follows the historical demands of Chilean students. They are calling for sex education, and one which isn't sexist. They say that the current education causes gender violence and HIV.
Our primary demand is the issue of non-sexist education and sexual education during secondary school and university. We see companions who are mobilizing within universities with this demand because they see gender violence within their respective establishments.
Students were caught in violence today. outside of the classrooms this time. The students were hit with water cannons and tear gas from moving vehicles. Any attempt to demonstrate was stifled. Students, for the most part underage, were subject to identity control for just walking and resting. Chilean democracy allegedly allows freedom of association, but always under the watchful eyes of the Chilean military police.
Hundreds of mothers in Mexico organized a large march to demand that their missing children return home to them this Mother's Day. Dozens of families gathered in Mexico City in the intense heat, holding signs saying, "Hold on, Mom is looking for you," and others saying, "No more disappearances." The mothers are protesting the fact that more than 30,000 people are currently missing in Mexico, with many feared dead, and violence continues to ravage the country.
Today, I would like to ask the government to give us this present for May 10th. That is the present I'm asking for, that they help us find our children.
In Bolivia, authorities clashed with rural protesters in the southern department of Chuquisaca. Thousands of residents have been blocking roads for 14 days over a gas dispute. The protesters were removed from an international highway leading to Argentina and Paraguay. They're opposing a court decision that gave neighboring Santa Cruz department ownership of the Incahuasi gas fields. Over 40 activists have been detained. The government insists the borders were set over 100 years ago and has said it will respect the decision of the courts.
To the people of Chuquisaca who are concerned today, who are being told that they want to take away the Incahuasi mountain range, it's a lie. We are guaranteeing that nobody touched any millimeter of Chuquisaqueño territory that was defined more than 100 years ago. Nobody moves it. Nobody changes it. We are defending that, and we reject any kind of political pressure that wants to push us to modify the borders. We are not going to do it. So I regret the events. I regret what is occurring because, in some cases, the protests give rise to lies.
In Chile, a major lagoon just south of Santiago has dried up for the first time in 2,000 years, leaving livestock struggling for food and water. The Aculeo Lagoon is a 12-square-kilometer waterhole that was once used as a destination for swimmers and boaters. Some blame the lack of water on drought plaguing parts of Chile, while others believe it has to do with overconsumption of water. We'll take one last short break, but join us after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Hace minutos hablé con Christine Lagarde, su directora, y nos confirmó que vamos a arrancar hoy mismo a trabajar en un acuerdo.
Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has just announced that he's meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on the 12th of June. The meeting will take place in Singapore. Via Twitter, Trump said they will try to work towards world peace. This is the first time a sitting U.S. president will meet with a North Korean leader. It's been 7 decades since the creation of Israel, marking forced mass displacements of Palestinians from their homeland. A 1947 United Nations resolution had called for the partitioning of Palestine between Arabs and Jews. The decision made more than 700,000 Palestinians homeless. Today, over 5 million Palestinian refugees spread across Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Gaza, and the West Bank. Palestinians still dream to return to their native land, and it's been 6 weeks since they launched the Great March of Return.
The March of Return began from Gaza and today from Bethlehem to continue the Great Return, marches to Jerusalem and to our villages and cities. This event coincides with the transfer of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, and we are sending a message to the whole world that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Palestine.
Will the dream of my generation come true in time so we can return home? Maybe. If then, it will be my children. If not them, then their children. But the dream of return spreads from one generation to the next.
Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has hosted his Chinese counterpart Li Keqiang and South Korean President Moon Jae-in in Tokyo for a 3-day summit. The meeting is in preparation for a summit between the U.S. and North Korea. It is the first time a Chinese premier has visited Japan in 8 years.
With the current positive changes concerning the Korean Peninsula issue, the leaders of the 3 continents exchanged views over the issue and sent a unified voice. This helps to push for a political settlement of the issue.
Ecuadorian police have held an official retirement ceremony for 61 police dogs in Quito. Each of these good boys and girls was on active service for an average of 9 years, helping fight against illegal drugs trade. 16 of those dogs helped locate victims trapped under rubble following the 2016 earthquake that left more than 600 people dead. During the emotional service, officers prayed and remembered their canine colleagues that lost their lives in the line of duty. The majority of the dogs, Labradors, German Shepherds, and Golden Retrievers, will find a new home with their former trainers. However, some carefully selected civilians will also take on the role.
Now that we say goodbye, an enormous sadness fills us, and we thank them very much, and may God bless them. These are not objects that we're throwing away or work tools. These are great police officers that are leaving us today, true heroes. Good luck to my canine colleagues. You, my dogs, have earned a place in heaven. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
That special canine unit sure had their well-deserved retirement. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And be sure to follow us also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
With developing events being presented through analysis.